Alright then everyone, welcome back to today's video, and today I'll be giving my thoughts, my impressions on the Switch 2 after the Direct that just happened a couple days ago. Let's get straight into my thoughts and impressions. So I'm going to start off talking about the hardware for the Switch 2. Overall, I'm pleased with it. So I've just got my notes here. So here it says $395.99 on its own and $429.99 for the Mario Kart World Bundle. So also, just as a disclaimer, I'm using British pounds, it's different dollars, euros, all that stuff. I think the price is alright. I was hoping it would be £350, give or take, but I'm not too annoyed at the console's price itself. And I think that it got justified, but after like all the other stuff that they showed off. So the Switch 2 is capable of up to 4K and 120 FPS. This is huge. I doubt that the games are always going to reach that, but the fact it's a possibility is still great to have. The mouse mode, that was something they confirmed here, and they also showed off a little game for it, Drag X Drive, which admittedly I think looks a little bit like ARMS, at least in the way of it's the sort of gimmicky game that doesn't look like it's got a bunch of content. Hopefully it doesn't cost that much. If it's only like, you know, a £20, £30 download, then I may consider getting it, but yeah, it looks like a neat little time, especially because I haven't talked about this on my channel before, but I'm also a huge basketball fan. I support Miami Heat, if you were wondering. So, like, as a basketball fan, I love that Nintendo are making their own separate basketball game. I just think that's really fun. The release date is June 5th. I think most of us were expecting like a summertime launch around that sort of area. Overall, the design just seems better. Like, I love the bigger sizing of it, of course the stronger specs. I'm hoping, you know, when you're playing with the single Joy-Con, you don't have to cramp your hands when you're doing it, because that's an absolute nuisance playing Mario Kart at like a friend's house or something. I'll get to a bit of bad news, because the battery life is about on par with the original Switch, if not a little bit worse. So that's a bit disappointing. I was hoping for a longer battery life, but I guess you can't win them all, you know. Finally, for the voice chat, the party system, the voice chat, I love that. It's so nice to finally have Nintendo speccing into this type of online experience. I am scared, unfortunately, there may only be 4 people at max in a single party, although it's not a huge deal considering most Nintendo games are 4-player only. But even still, I think the addition either way is much appreciated. I think the screen share and the camera stuff is also really a fun addition. I doubt I'm going to use it much personally, but I would love to see someone just visibly like throw their controller after getting like blue shelled in Mario Kart, or having like a star stolen in Mario Party. I just think that would be really funny. Moving on, this is going to be the main bulk of the video. I'm just talking about the games. So I'm going to get the elephant in the room out of the way. The prices. They are upsetting. I think most people were expecting £60 games. We got 70. Or ones. I'm not saying all games are up to £75, but some are, and that's a problem. I think that lots of people are going to be priced out, and especially because Nintendo was definitely a budget option for quite a lot of people. I think this will hurt Nintendo and the Switch 2's chances of having the same ignitable success as the Switch 1 did. But there's only so much we can do. Like, I think if you really don't like the prices, speak with your wallet. I think that's what I and lots of other people are going to do. Because if I'm being honest, I am not paying £75 for Mario Kart. Even if $66.99 for the digital version is a lot, or it's a lot better, like it's a bearable price, I suppose, but it's still it's still like, oh, I don't like that. But yeah, I'd say if you really don't like it, speak with your wallet. I know I'm only getting Mario Kart through the bundle. I don't want to get it separately because that will just run me a fortune. And as a uni student, I mean, I barely have the money for a console, let alone have the money for an entire, like £75 game. Oh. I will say the only silver lining, and this is me just trying to stay positive, is that the £75 or like $80 price tag seems to only be reserved for the physical games that are the like Nintendo's big hitters. So I'd assume it'll be, your Zeldas, your Marios, Mario Karts, maybe like Animal Crossing, maybe Splatoon. The reason I say this is because DK Bonanza is about £10 cheaper, so that is a little blessing, I suppose. But still, I don't think any game should be up to £75, especially considering that's just the base game, not even any DLC. But moving on, tired of being a little bit negative, let's get to some positive stuff. I'm gonna go straight to Mario Kart World, and it looks fun. It looks really good. The open world is a neat concept, and people have been asking for it for ages. I know I have. It's really nice to actually see it happening. The track design also looks great. I think in particular, I'm loving that one track with the robot DK. I think it's like the DK Rocket Summit or whatever. But that track looks really fun. I'm hoping there's some kind of versus race mode where I can just play that one track on a 3-lap loop, rather than going all the way through the Grand Prix. That is actually one of my big concerns for the game. I think the character selection I'm very divided on, because on one hand, it's very funny being able to play as a cow or a penguin, but at the same time, you add all these characters, but there's no Diddy Kong or Dry Bowser or like any characters like that. None of the Koopalings. It just seems a bit strange to me, if I'm being honest. I think another thing I actually don't have in my notes, I love the physics engine. I love being able to grind on different surfaces and even wall ride some areas. And also, the entire game seems very streamlined. You don't have to pick a kart combo. You can just, pick a character, pick a kart, get straight into it. It's all a part of one big deal. And that, to me, I think is great. Overall, I think Mario Kart World looks like just a huge leap for the entire series. It feels like it's entering its own stage. It's more than just Mario being in a go-kart. It's its own IP, its own brand at this point. And I think I said this during the presentation. I said it's less than a step up. It's more like the whole flight of stairs for this series. And that, I think, is an incredible thing. I'm going to make this one quick. The Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour shouldn't be paid content. That I'm very confused about. This should be a free pack-in because, real talk, it's just a glorified user manual. It's a user manual that's just interactive. I don't see why you have to pay money for that. Going on to the launch lineup, I think it is one of Nintendo's most impressive launch lineups ever. Not only do you have Mario Kart World, which is probably Nintendo's most anticipated game maybe ever. Like, people have been asking for a new Mario Kart for like over a decade. You add onto that Street Fighter, Yakuza 0, Deltarune Chapters 3 and 4, and Cyberpunk. That means there's going to be a ton to play, both first party, third party, indie, and it's just a very well-rounded lineup. Especially considering the Donkey Kong Bonanza is coming out only about a month later. So once you get tired of Mario Kart World, boom, new Donkey Kong to play. On top of everything else, it's just a very good launch lineup. Talking about the third-party support, I loved its presence in the Direct. They made sure you knew about the third parties and, who's working on the games. I love how they refer to them as partners. It gives a very, sense of Nintendo's working very hard to get third-party support on their side, which I would argue has been infamously Nintendo's biggest problem since the N64 days. Games like Elden Ring aren't even that old, and that's a huge deal. Elden Ring was Game of the Year. The DLC was a Game of the Year nominee, although, however you feel about that, Elden Ring is a huge deal, and having that come to the Switch too, yeah, is it a few years old? But that's still just one of the biggest games of the last few years coming to the Switch 2. That's basically this console's version of Skyrim coming to the original Switch. The Duskbloods, what a pull by Nintendo. Getting an original FromSoft IP as an exclusive? Yeah, you heard me right, exclusive. I think that means Nintendo could be in the works with a bunch of other developers, not only getting their games on the Switch too, but I think lots of other developers may be interested in investing the time, the effort, the money into potentially making even more Switch 2 exclusives. Also, as a side note, apparently the Duskbloods was slated for the Switch 1 during early development, but then switched over to the Switch 2, which I just find that really funny, the thought of a FromSoft game being an exclusive to the Switch 1. I mean, with that console's power, I don't know if that would have been the best choice. So luckily we got it on the Switch 2. Going back to first-party games, Metroid Prime 4 Switch 2 Edition is everything I could have ever dreamed of for Metroid Prime 4. 4K, 60 FPS, it looks stunning, it runs insanely well. I've seen the treehouse for the first mission, and everything. I'm just going to gush for a little bit. The cutscenes, the controls, the action, it just looks so clean, so nice. And again, this is everything I could have ever asked for. And talking about Switch 2 editions, I'm going to make sure I play Breath of the Wild for Switch 2 edition. I'm a little upset they didn't add any content like the other Switch 2 editions, but the Breath of the Wild Switch 2 edition, that frame rate and the graphics look gorgeous. I already think Breath of the Wild is one of the best looking Nintendo games, period. So to have that in such a nice quality is also a dream come true, as Breath of the Wild is my favourite game of all time. Also, another thing I didn't put in my notes was, I believe the Breath of the Wild Switch 2 edition and the Tears of the Kingdom Switch 2 edition, both of those will be free if you have the expansion pack to Nintendo Switch Online. Which, yeah, putting it behind a paywall either way is a little bit iffy, but I like that it's still an option for the expansion pack. Speaking of the expansion pack, GameCube, finally we're getting GameCube. I can't believe it, it's finally here. It's something I've been wanting for years now, especially as, unfortunately, I'm at the age where I just barely missed out on the GameCube generation. So I cannot wait to see some GameCube games coming onto the Switch 2, and personally, I only have the regular Switch Online. I will be updating to the expansion pack once the Switch 2 releases. Although only launching with 3 games, I do think is a bit of a disappointment. But if they have consistent updates, I don't think it will be the end of the world. If you missed it, the 3 games are The Wind Waker, F-Zero GX, and Soul Calibur 2. So yeah, hopefully the Switch Online updates regularly and isn't drip-fed over months. Ugh. It wasn't good on the Switch 1, I'll say that. Silk Song. We got 3 seconds of gameplay, but we did get a 2025 release date. Finally, this game has been shown off. It's been playable for 6 years. Finally, we've got something. I'm praying they're not lying about that release date being in 2025, but it's just nice to have. Kirby Air Riders. I think that's such a great addition to this console. I think, I can't fully give my opinions on it because we only saw a CG trailer, but I think it's just a great addition to have. I'm very happy for the Kirby Air Ride fans who have been asking for a sequel or a remake for like 2 decades now. And I also love that Sakurai isn't only bound to the Smash Bros. Series. As much as I love Smash, it's my most played game on the Switch, it's just... it's time for something more like that Sakurai can do. So I'm glad, he gets to work on Kirby Air Ride, which I believe he directed the first one. Okay, finally, rounding out the games, Donkey Kong Bonanza looks incredible. I don't think I've ever seen a collectathon type game where you can break the entire environment and do all that lovely stuff. I've been wanting to get into Donkey Kong for a long time. I've never been able to really pick it up, mainly because either money issues or there have just been other games I prioritized at the time. So this looks like it's finally my chance to actually get into the Donkey Kong series and actually play the games. I love the redesign. He looks so much more expressive and alive. And the Odyssey team, the Super Mario Odyssey team, are most likely behind this game, and it shows. The graphics are gorgeous, the environments are alive and filled with that cartoony flair that Odyssey had. And again, this game looks fantastic. I can't wait to pick it up in July. And I'm surprised. I thought it was going to be a holiday title, but I actually quite like that July release date. Okay, so finally, I'm just going to summarize my thoughts and feelings in these few. So, firstly, I think the console itself is looking great. It's more up to date than the Switch was at launch, and I think the price point is respectable for the console itself. The game's prices are upsetting, and I think some of the other prices and things that Nintendo are charging for, I don't like. The camera is super expensive. The controllers are quite expensive too. Also, charging for the Welcome to Switch 2, I just think is ridiculous. The third-party support and online experiences, I think that show Nintendo are they're just out for blood this generation. They're trying to catch up, and they want as many people, as many devs on their side as possible. And I love that for Nintendo. Finally, my thought on Nintendo's games, I'm loving what they're doing. I adore the push for the lesser Nintendo IPs getting a chance. IPs like DK, Kirby Air Ride, Metroid Prime, Tomodachi Life, Rhythm Heaven, even new IPs like Drag X Drive. I'm loving that they're getting the time of day. Not only does this give the fans of these different IPs the things they've been asking for years, lots of them decades even, but it also frees up Nintendo's release schedule down the line. So, say next year we might have, say, a 3D Zelda, then the year after that we can have our Animal Crossing, then after that it can be our Mario, then our Splatoon. So, Nintendo can gradually drop these big names throughout the lifespan of this console without having to worry that all of their star power is gone in the first couple of months. And that's it. Those are my thoughts and impressions on the Switch 2. If you have anything else to say and if any points to discuss, feel free, drop them in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, do all that lovely stuff if you'd like. I hope you all have a good one, and I hope to see you soon.